Good evening, America. Welcome to Volume 1 of Books and Bourbon, starring your host, John Fernino, that's myself, humble Southeast Michigander from Metro Detroit, as you can see from my ball cap here. Go Tigers! They're not doing well, they're not playing baseball right now. So I guess go Tribe, right? Woo. But anyway, welcome, thanks for tuning in. I'm looking to do every couple weeks, maybe every month cast to everybody on YouTube here for now. Just want to talk books and drink some bourbon. That's where the bourbon comes in. Books and bourbon. Really just looking to get my thoughts on there about some newer books that have come out. Oldies but goodies. I'll even do classic literature. I've been in a literature state of mind lately. So I'm going to review the book, give you guys a brief description of the book. I won't give any spoilers away, don't worry about that. Really sensitive about spoilers, so really just kind of a quick summary and my thoughts about the book. If it's a well-known author, I might compare it to that author's other books as well. And you know what? We'll start with books, but I love movies, I love games too. I even read a little poetry every now and then. We can get really hoity-toity and talk poetry. Gonna need some good bourbon for that. But yeah, just looking to talk about some stuff and things and drink some bourbon. Which actually brings us to the 3 rules, really, of books and bourbon. So if you're watching this and it's a weeknight, I don't really care because tonight's a weeknight. And I have my bourbon right here, ready to rock, okay? So there's only 3 rules to books and bourbon. Number 1, we talk books, or movies, or games, or whatever, video games maybe at some point. That's a little too high-tech for me right now, but once I get some video editing chops down, I can go that route. But really, books, and then of course, bourbon. So, if it's a weeknight, again, I don't care. You can put me on pause right there, just put me on pause, and grab some bourbon. Go ahead, I'll wait for you. I'm not wearing a watch, but I can pretend. Good. Hopefully you've got your bourbon. Now, if you've already gotten your bourbon, awesome. If you still haven't yet, guess what? You get a chance to pause me again and run up to your corner liquor store and snag yourself a bottle of this week's featured bourbon. Because at Books and Bourbon, we always feature a different bourbon every episode. So, drum roll please. On tonight's Volume 1, I wanted to start off with really kind of a run-of-the-mill, middle shelf type bourbon, if you will. It is, in fact, a bourbon whiskey, okay? It's not a rye. It's not a wannabe bourbon. This is the real deal. Tonight's featured bourbon, ladies and gentlemen, Pennypacker Kentucky Bourbon Whiskey. Right there, Pennypacker. Cool, old school, kind of, south of the border, south of the Mason-Dixon line looking label here from Kentucky, of course. Handcrafted, according to the bottle. Of course, sour mash, as all bourbons should be. We're looking at 40% alcohol by volume, so 80 proof on this bad boy. Not too bad, pretty typical for bourbon, pretty run-of-the-mill, pretty middle of the road there, okay? So, again, not sure who this guy right here is. He looks important. Looks like he might have been Mr. Pennypacker himself. I don't know, that sounds kind of vulgar. But anyway, pause me, run up to the store, get yourself a bottle of Pennypacker bourbon before we partake, all right? Because that's how every episode starts. We drink some bourbon first, then we talk. All right, hopefully you've got yourself a rocks glass. I'm going to warn you right now, I am not a bourbon snob. I just like to drink bourbon. So you all may just take a nice rocks glass, put 1 rock in there, right? A lot of people like their bourbon with 1 rock, or drink it neat, right? I am snobby enough that I know what neat means. It means you just pour the bourbon in, let it breathe for a second, and you sip on it. I am about to commit probably the biggest bourbon sin there is, which proves that I'm not an actual bourbon snob. I'm going to do a shot of bourbon, okay? I'll shoot bad bourbon. I'll shoot really good bourbon. that's not meant to be shot. I know, okay? I admit it. But either way, I'm enjoying the bourbon, okay? I swish it around for a minute, then I swallow it. Might cough a little bit, but man, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. So here we go to Volume 1 of Books and Bourbon. You may notice I'm drinking out of a Maverick roller coaster shot glass. That is kind of related. That's on purpose, as is my Maverick t-shirt right here. Those of you from around the area, I'm sure, know of Maverick, a roller coaster here at Cedar Point, not too far from here at all. Why Maverick? Why Maverick? Well, it ties into the bourbon real nice. It just looks bourbon-y, doesn't it? It's Old West, right? It's Old West. It's in Frontier Town at Cedar Point. Ooh, Old West, wooden stuff. You know, bars, saloons, westerns, giving a shot of bourbon. So that's reason number one. So that's all we're really going to talk about there right now. But anyway, here we go. Cheers, everyone. Enjoy your bourbon as I will mine. Thank you. Yeah. Woo! Pennypacker's good. I chase it with beer. Don't worry, it's just light beer. Oh, I will try not to belch here on camera. Gross everyone out, but that is some good stuff. Starts off smooth, kind of burns you right there. It's not like Jack though. It doesn't burn as bad as Jack, which is not a bourbon. We'll talk about that in a future episode, I'm sure. But it actually smooths out real quick and it warms you up right there. So, cheers, everyone. Let's have a good episode of Books and Bourbon. I was talking about the 3 requirements at one point, and I forgot. I got distracted by the bourbon part. What the 3rd rule of Books and Bourbon is. So, if you're like me, doesn't matter if it's a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday, whatever. You enjoy a little nip of bourbon. You've got your book. What are you missing? What are you missing? You're missing one very important thing, okay? That is moccasins. You gotta wear mocks, okay? Moccasins go hand in hand with books and bourbon. That's the 3rd rule of Books and Bourbon. So get on your mocks. Guys and gals, I know everyone owns a pair of moccasins. Go put them on. Get comfy. Books and Bourbon's about comfort. A good book, a good glass or shot glass of bourbon, and some Kmart moccasins. Kmart really doesn't exist anymore, but oh well, they had good mocks for a good value. So get on those mocks. Those are the 3 rules. Again, types of books we're going to be talking about on the show. You know, I'm a big fan of horror. If you know me, you know that. I love me some good horror novels. But also I love fantasy, science fiction, historical fiction. Big fan of some historical fiction writers. Biography, autobiography, and literature. So I'm actually by degree an English teacher. So I have read some literature and I enjoy some of it. You know, I wouldn't get all hoity-toity and start quoting Henry James or who wrote the Scarlet Letter? Nathaniel Hawthorne, right? I'm not going to be that hoity-toity. I'll give it straight, right? But the truth is, what I've found is that a lot of the classics really are classics for a reason. But I'll also review some that I disagree with. I think there are some classics that are way overrated. Jane Austen. Oh, sorry. But we'll get to that all in good time. I'm most comfortable with horror, though. I read a lot of horror novels. And I do believe that a well-written horror story is one of the greatest things out there, really. There's not many awesome ones, but when they're awesome, man, they rip. They take you away. And they have a good horror story actually has everything in it. It's got some humor. It can be really sad. It can be really gory, kind of gross out. I haven't really been into the gross out just for the fact of the gross out, though. The really good horror stories kind of get under your skin a little bit, and they just keep you tense in a good way. So, but again, I'll rotate. I'll keep everything fresh and and exciting for everyone. So that actually brings us to our first book of Books and Bourbon. We had our first sip of bourbon. I'm going to have another sip of beer here. And here's our first book for the series. I wanted to kick it off with a positive review. So this is actually the last book that I read. I'm currently reading another one, but I have finished this one quite recently. It's not a new book. It is Joyland by the King of Horror, Mr. Stephen King. Check out the cover. Pretty cool cover, actually. It looks really pulpy. Looks very 60s crime. I'm seeing old pulp crime book, wrinkled and tattered on your newsstand that you paid 99 cents for. Look at the spine. Not much going on there. Black on white, red on white, with a cool little emblem right here, which I'll talk about in a minute. But anyway, not a new book. This thing's been around since 2013, so I was kind of behind the game on this. I'm a huge Stephen King fan, and this one went under the radar for me. I do remember hearing about it when it came out, and it had to actually do with this emblem right here. It says hard case crime, and what that is actually a publisher. Stephen King hooked up with a kind of an indie publisher that publishes pulp crime books. And I think he came to an agreement with them. I'm not sure how many books he agreed to write to have published under their label. But so far, this is his second one. The other one is an older one. This was actually the first one, The Colorado Kid. So you can see a lot of similarity here, right? They both look really pulpy. Both definitely feature prominent women on the covers, and they look very R-rated, right? Pretty steamy, pretty steamy. The backs also look the same too. They're cool looking in person. I like them. But again, they look cheap. They look pulpy. That's all on purpose. So anyway, Joyland is his second book under the hard crime publisher. So what's cool, this never got released as a hardcover, unlike all of his other books, basically, besides like his other specialty published books, the older Dark Tower books being one of those. But again, not in hardcover, just this paperback, this size paperback. And in fact, I just found out he didn't even allow this to be published as an ebook. So you could not buy this on Kindle, you couldn't buy this for your Nook, your Amazon Fire, anything like that. You had to buy a physical copy. You could buy it online, but you had to buy a physical copy. I'm not sure if that's still the case or if he relaxed on that now that it's 4 years old. This was from 2013. Let me know. I'm not sure. I'm a backwards guy. I am totally anti-Kindle and only hardcover or paper, real paper. But I understand the attraction to digital. I'm just not into it. But let me know if he's released it on ebook yet. But anyway, so yeah, this one went under my radar. If you walked into Borders in 2013 or you walked into, I think Borders was still around in 2013. I hope they were. Barnes & Noble in 2013. This wasn't going to be right at the front desk, or they weren't going to have rows of it. It just kind of hid in the bookstores. Now, I am a little ignorant because it was a #1 New York Times bestseller. Whatever, it was a secret. It secretly went to #1. Okay, I'd never heard of it. Okay, so I had heard of it, but I never bought it. So it was under the radar. It's a secret gem. But again, huge Stephen King fan. This one's short, not that long. Type is, it's not tiny. Only 283 pages. And let me tell you, it's a page turner. Okay, Stephen King, I wouldn't consider a page turner usually. He can get pretty deep into exposition where he just kind of takes a thought and just goes with it, and it kind of goes aside from the major plot for a while. And he can be long-winded too. If any of you have read any of his longer books, know his books can take a while to get through. This one, not the case. It's quick. It's pretty simple, and you're driving forward through it, through the whole thing. It is all plot, written very well, very fast-paced. In fact, what's cool is there are no chapters in this book. If you go to the first page, you will not see chapter 1. You will not see book 1. You will not see prologue. You will see a little heart right there. Those are the chapters, and they can be first chapter's a paragraph long. It's not even called a chapter. So, I like to call those just stopping points, right? So what's cool is literally there's some every 3 pages, or there's some that are only, I think there's one in here, it's a kicker. It hits you in the gut. That's only like 2 sentences long. You're like, okay, I'm done for the night. 2 sentences. Those were 2 very important sentences. I'm going to bed. But it works. It works. It keeps the pace really quick. And you don't really know where you're at in the story. Am I in chapter 20? I have no idea. I'm this far. I don't know. It works really well, and you just keep wanting to read to the next heart. Or you're like, okay, where's the next heart? Okay, I can go that far. Okay. So, I went on a business trip to Pittsburgh with this book, and I started it there in the hotel room after a pretty long day. And I was up way too late, like 3 a.m., reading this thing. And I got through at least 100 pages on that first night. So it's a quick read, guys. It's a quick read. That's my clock chiming the hour. Don't worry, it doesn't count down the hour, so you don't know what time it is here. But yeah, it takes you away pretty quick, and it's all action. I think I read it in 4 sittings. I'm sure some of you out there will read it in 1. You're going to pull an all-nighter reading this thing. So, again, the book is Joyland by Stephen King. So, what's the book about? Well, first let me talk a little bit about Stephen King. So, I won't go on that long. I'm a huge fan of his. I own all his books in hardcover. In fact, behind the camera right now is my Stephen King bookshelf of all, 53, I don't know, like 53-ish books of his that I own, all in chronological order for easy reference. I'm anal retentive that way. But anyway, Stephen King, to me, real quick in my opinion, can be kind of divided into 3 or 4 phases. Even though I'm a huge fan, he's my favorite author, he really is the reason I got into reading as an adult. Even before I was an adult, I think my first book by him I read when I was 11. But I was like, oh man, this is awesome. He really has gone through 3 or 4 phases, and not all of his books are great. So, a lot of you are probably watching this, if you're still sticking with it, and you're like, as soon as I showed Stephen King, you're like, oh, Stephen King, yeah, of course it's good. I'm not into him, but everyone else is, so whatever, stop. That's not true. Not all of his books are for everyone. I can tell you right now, I can name 4 of his books that I really didn't care for a whole lot. In a minute. I will. I'll name them. I got them memorized. There's 4. There might be 6 or so out of his 50-some. But he's not, every one of his books is not for everyone. And someone who's written that many books, I hope they're not for everyone. That would be kind of weird if someone wrote that many books that were that person's very favorite book ever. That's not true for me. That's not. He has better books. He has some very mediocre books. And he has some fantastic books that really are the best books I've ever read. So, anyway, every King book isn't a great King book. If you don't like Stephen King, I do believe you just haven't found the right Stephen King book yet. So, I mean, he's just all over the place with a career of, what, since 1974, I think he's been writing. Carrie was like 74 or 75 to today. But the man just, he keeps writing. He keeps writing. He has a brand new book out right now with his son Owen King. It doesn't stop. And for the most part, they're very good books. My phases of Stephen King, I'll go through those real quick. So I think I'd call his first phase his classic phase. Carrie, Salem's Lot, The Shining, Night Shift, The Stand. I would end it with Dead Zone. All of those books are fantastic. You've got a young writer. He was only, I think, 23, maybe. I could be wrong on that. He was young, struggling. He was a cheaply paid English teacher in rural Maine, writing in a trailer. He wrote Carrie in the back of a trailer, a single wide, I think, trailer. His wife worked at Dunkin' Donuts, and he threw the manuscript for Carrie away. And his wife, here's why wives are awesome, or girlfriends, or significant others. She took it out of the garbage can and made him finish the manuscript. And there you go. Carrie was a pretty big hit. It got him a couple more automatic book deals with Doubleday. But anyway, those books are all fantastic. What are those? His first 5. Carrie's awesome. Salem's Lot's awesome. Shining's awesome. I forgot The Stand. Awesome. All a young writer finding his voice, and it's a great voice. And these are, for the most part, these are hardcore horror novels. They're great horror stories. And they read quick, except The Stand. That was his first epic. That thing's, the uncut version's 1,200 pages long, but they're classic. I think everyone knows them. If you haven't read them, you've probably seen the movie based on them. The movies were all good. Honestly, yeah, they were all good movies. I think I ended at The Dead Zone. That was a good book too. Very cool. So that was his first phase, his classic phase. Then he was huge. So now we're getting in the 80s. And he was literally releasing a book a year. And we're not talking short books. We're talking 600 pagers. It came out during that time. That was 86, 85, I think. That's 1,100 pages. That's what I call like his mainstream years, when everyone knew his name, everyone knew who he was, and he was just releasing books nonstop. Hit or miss during that phase to me. Most of them are great books. Some were misses to me. Again, most of you probably know at least 6 of those books because they've all just turned into classics. Christine, Pet Sematary, Cujo, It, which just can't, they just rebooted that movie and it's a huge hit. It hit. Take a sip of beer for that. Misery, Tommyknockers. I would call that up probably till the dark half. Then I call the next phase there's 4 phases. His next phase is the 90s. That's my least favorite phase. Very hot and cold in the 90s. He kind of lost me in the 90s. That's when he got kind of fantastical. Still some really good stuff. The Green Mile was from the 90s. He thought to release that as little chapbooks that you could buy every month. I was so excited for that. I'd go to Borders and buy the next little installment in the Green Mile. It was awesome. I don't know if, hopefully people remember that's how he decided to release it. You bought it in, 7 installments. And they were little chapter books. They were like $2 a piece, soft cover. That was awesome. That was a great idea. So 90s Stephen King was still pretty awesome. And then you have the new Stephen King. And he really has released some good stuff lately. Like he's back and he's writing every year again, maybe every year and a half. And he's just rocking. And I would absolutely consider Joyland a part of that. So this book, I rate my books in beer and bourbon, or beer and bourbon, books and bourbon, and beer. We can add the third one later. Books and bourbon. I rate them in bourbon bottles out of 5 bourbon bottles. Joyland gets 4.5 bourbon bottles. Absolutely loved this book. Loved it. It's classic King. It's new King. He's taking you to a place you want to go. It's funny, it's sad. I cry at books sometimes. This one had me crying a little bit. It's scary, it's spooky. It's October right now. It's a good October read. There's some spookiness to it. It is not it's a whodunit, but that takes second stage, and I'll get into that in a minute. It really is spooky. It's a ghost story. It doesn't look like it from the cover, does it? It looks like a weird serial killer book that I wouldn't really be interested in. Not true. It's spooky. It's a ghost story. What's it about? That was my King history lesson. I could go on, but I won't. What's Joyland about? So, it is about an amusement park called Joyland in North Carolina. And it's about a young man named Devin who gets his heart broken. So it starts with loss. Devin, I think he's going to school in New England. Blue collar, can barely afford it. So you feel for him right away. And he's in love with this girl. They never really do anything. They don't do it or anything like that. But he's in love with her. And they have their future planned out. We're going to graduate in 2 years. You're going to be that. I'm going to be that. We're both going to be rich and make money. Happily ever after. We're going to love each other and make lots of babies. And life is going to be awesome. Well, she dumps him. And breaks his heart. And she goes to a different school or something like that. And he decides he needs to get away. And he goes to work in the summer for summer vacation or summer break at this amusement park. I've thought of doing it. I've thought of going to Cedar Point, working there. I've thought of going down to Disney World and being goofy for, hopefully not the summer, the fall maybe in Florida. But he does that. He goes down to North Carolina, right on the ocean there. It's a coastline place. And, sorry, my cats are starting to go nuts. I'm surprised they haven't jumped up behind me yet. They will. He decides to work at this amusement park for like minimum wage for the summer, just to kind of get away. And he runs into a mystery. He runs into a murder at the amusement park. So the whodunit part comes in there. Devin kind of plays college detective and tries to track down this murderer of this woman who was killed in a dark ride at Joyland. So a dark ride, Haunted Mansion is a dark ride. If you go to a little city carnival, they'll usually have a really crappy dark ride that lasts for like 20 seconds. And you just bang through some doors in pitch black and it's over. That's a dark ride. Haunted houses are all dark rides. So a woman gets murdered by her boyfriend in the dark ride, and Devin plays college detective to try to find out who the murderer is. Come to find out, the murderer's gone to different amusement parks. He's a serial killer of amusement parks. He'll kill women in amusement parks. So, that's kind of the most basic summary of the plot. Nothing too wild, right? It's a whodunit. But what I really enjoyed about this book is the whodunit part. This cover, the way this was published, actually kind of makes me mad. It's much more than that. The whodunit really plays second fiddle in this book. It is not the central plot of the book. The central plot really gets into some of the best Stephen King stuff. And themes, right? His themes, he's really good at loss. He's really good at coming of age. Stephen King does coming of age very well. If you've ever seen the movie Stand By Me, that's Stephen King. That was a novella called The Shining, The Body, from different seasons. But Stand By Me was all about a coming of age, Gordy and his friends coming of age. And that's really what this book is about. It's about a guy, doesn't matter if he's a guy, it could easily be a girl, coming of age and realizing that he thinks he is all bummed out and he thinks that life will never get better. And he finds out, and this is actually a line from the book, he finds out there are worse things in true Stephen King fashion. You thought you were bummed, that's nothing. you're about to actually find out what the real big deals in life are. And Stephen King does it really well in the book. He introduces neighbors that live down the beach. I don't want to get too spoily on it or anything like that, but it hits heavy. There's some heavy duty emotion stuff in this book, and suspense. Well, I'll get to more in a second, but anyway, love it. 4.5 bourbon bottles for Joyland. I got my little cheat sheet right here. So, what I really loved about this book, I'll go through some strong points and weak points. What I really loved about it was Stephen King, again, he does loss real well. He does coming of age really, really well. And he does setting very well. If you like Stephen King, think about some of your favorite Stephen King books and think about how he does setting in those books. Because I'm going to tell you, Joyland, he actually makes the amusement park another character. And it's awesome. He doesn't give you... What I love about Stephen King, he never over-describes the park, right? He doesn't tell you the color of all the different stalls or that the paint is chipping on the third brick down from the skee ball stands or anything like that. He gives you just enough. And then he lets you fill in the rest. So, in my imagination, Joyland is different than the way it's going to be in yours. But I guarantee it's going to kind of look the same in all the right ways. And what he does so well in this book is he lets you know where Joyland falls on the amusement park ladder. So the book, first of all, I forgot to say this, and the cover kind of tells you, the retro cover kind of tells you a little bit. The book takes place in, I think, 1968, 69, 70 maybe. So late 60s, early 70s at the latest. And if you think about amusement parks at that time, it was a very interesting time. Cedar Point, right? Maverick. Cedar Point was not the same amusement park in the late 60s as it is today at all. It really was kind of old school in the late 60s, early 70s. I think the main ride then was the Jumbo Jet. That's before my time, but I remember hearing stories about the Jumbo Jet. And that was really like the only roller coaster they had. They might have had the Blue Streak was still around then. But, there were maybe 2 or 3 roller coasters. And Joyland was kind of that era. So, late 60s, early 70s, Disney scared the crap out of a lot of amusement park owners. A lot of middle circuit amusement parks. So we're talking about parks that are much better than, your city fair where you're scared to ride the Ferris wheel. What do we have here? Wade shows, right? Sorry, Wade shows. I don't mean to talk bad about you. I've never had a problem there, but you're on that third rung from the bottom you're a carnival, right? Joyland is not that. Joyland is not Disneyland. They never will be. They know that Disneyland and Disney World are the wave of the future. They know that Cedar Point is going to dedicate themselves to roller coasters. Joyland can't afford that. So they're like this cool mid-grade, not too shoddy, but not Disneyland amusement park. They have 2 main streets. And they try. Like when you read this book, you're going to want to work at Joyland for the summer. Stephen King's done just such a great job of bringing you there in the summer of whatever, 69 to quote Bryan Adams, or 70 or whatever. He does a great job of making you want to be 20, 21, with your heart broken, in the late 60s, working at this amusement park. It's hard. You don't get paid good money. But as they say in the book, you sell fun. And Devin, the main character, buys into it, and that summer changes his life. coming of age. He realizes that there's more out there than a lost relationship. So great job, Stephen King, on Joyland. If you guys read it, you're going to have your own version of Joyland. I guarantee it. And it's going to be vivid. You're going to be able to smell it. You're going to hear it. Another thing he does, Stephen King, he has a great sense of place, and he loves language. And if you've read the Dark Tower books, I guarantee we could carry on a conversation in, what is it, High Gilead? I think it's been a while, but we could carry on a conversation right now using Dark Tower slang or the language or the vernacular. He does that here with carnival language. And he made it up. I read that it's in the back of the book. He basically made up his own carny language. But they're great words. Like, he makes up words that should be real words. And I'm going to start making them real words. And if you read this book, you're going to make them real words too. It's awesome. So 4.5 bourbon bottles out of 5. Quick read. You're going to get through it quick. And it's got something for everyone in it. So even if you're not into Stephen King, you're going to like this book, I bet. If you don't, let me know. Comment. I'm curious. You're going to like it. It's funny, sad, scary. It's got all that stuff in it. Talking about place with Stephen King and setting. He didn't just do it in Joyland. I just wanted to share with you guys some of the other books I think he really did it in. Because I started thinking about it, and I started remembering, yes, he really rocked in the setting in this. So here's my little list. This one has kind of been forgotten about. Needful Things. Great sense of place in Needful Things. And if you look really close, right above the title, you'll see that it was called The Last Castle Rock Story. So Castle Rock, for Stephen King fans, I'm just going to guesstimate that probably 10, maybe 12 of his books have taken place in this little city of Castle Rock in Maine. And this was going to be the last one. This came out, I think, 1990. I think I was 10 or 12 when it came out. And he was going to finish Castle Rock off in this book. He did, in spectacular fashion. But if you've seen the movie, movie's okay. I give it a C+, maybe. It misses a lot, and you'll see it's a pretty thick book. There's a lot going on in the book that was not included in the movie, and a lot that can't be included in a movie. That happens a lot with Stephen King, where he really gives the city a voice. You'll see Castle Rock in your mind. You'll know where all the stores are. You know, I haven't read the book in probably 11, 12 years, and I can still name one of the stores. Needful Things. Bad joke. No, I can name one of the stores. It's called You So-and-So. It's the sewing store that sells sewing goods. Get it? You So-and-So. He does that kind of stuff, and he does it great. So, Needful Things, you're going to see Castle Rock. You're going to feel like a resident of Castle Rock, which sucks, because he ends up blowing the town to hell, basically, in a handbasket at the end of the book. Won't give anything more away than that, but great book. So, Needful Things, he does it. My favorite Stephen King book, Salem's Lot, right? The name of the book is the name of the town. Again, if you've seen the movie, they kind of do it. And I'm talking about the original miniseries, not the crappy, awful Rob Lowe reboot miniseries. I was so bummed at that, I won't even get into it. But the book, it really, you get the geography of Salem's Lot down. He gives you the different demographics of the town really well. You see the richer people, you see the blue-collar people, you see the trash. They're all affected by the problem in Salem's Lot the same way. There's a little spoiler there. But great book. And what's cool is, just to give you an idea of how important the city or the town is to the story, he actually names recurring chapters after the town itself. I might be covering up with my fingers. The Lot. Okay, that's what the residents call it. It's the lot. It's short for Jerusalem's Lot. But anyway, he does it great in Salem's Lot. Great sense of place there. The Shining. Even if you're not a Stephen King fan, can you name the hotel that The Shining takes place in? Go. You can. I guarantee you can. There have been reality ghost shows that have gone to the hotel that this book was based off of, the Stanley Hotel in Colorado. There have been people who have gone to the fake hotel, or not the fake hotel, but the hotel the movie was shot at, which was not the Stanley Hotel. But people go there. People spend the night at the Stanley all the time because of the feeling that Stephen King evokes in The Shining for the Overlook Hotel. The Overlook Hotel is a character in this book. I would say it's actually the third character. Wendy is the fourth. I would say Jack, Danny, the Overlook, and then Wendy. But Wendy's a huge character too. So there's four. There's four, and they're all right there on the original cover there. Right there. So awesome book. Overlook Hotel, absolutely. Now we get to his thicker books. Definitely It. I don't think any of the movies will do it. I haven't seen the new movie yet. I don't know if I'm into it yet. I thought the miniseries was awesome with Tim Curry. I saw it when I was a kid. I just loved it. I thought it was great. I still didn't think it was as good as the book. How can it be? The book, the book is a major story. Lots going on. But the miniseries was awesome. I don't know about the movie yet. I've heard good things. I've heard bad things. But the fact is that I'm sure neither one of those movies do the book justice in terms of characterizing the city of Derry, Maine. So there's a couple different, maybe 3 different Stephen King books that take place in Derry. It was the first one. And the most important to me, his most important point in it was actually that the monster in it, hopefully without giving anything away, really kind of was the city. Yeah. All of Derry's evil parts manifested itself, or themselves, in it. Right there. There's the little claw, right? Most people think it, they think the clown, Pennywise. It's more than that. It's more than that. And the sense of place in it really gives that some flesh. It fleshes that out really well. So if you like the movie, you've only seen the new movie, check out the book. I know they're going to do a sequel to the movie in 2019. I think it is. Read the book. It seriously, please do it. It's long. Spend some time. It's a great novel. It's a great novel. So finally, the last one, real good sense of place, is Under the Dome. Another miniseries that I've heard good things about. Still haven't seen it. Another big one. This baby's, I think, 1,100 pages long. Something like that again. 1071 or 2. Great sense of place. I forget the name of the city. I've only read this one once. Boy, howdy, was it good, though. I ripped through this one. Who cares about the name of the place here? It's really just, he gives a great sense of place to the area under the dome. Again, you know all the people. You know the geography of the place. You know the buildings that the story takes place in. He just does a great job there. So anyway, to circle back, guys, I rambled a little longer than I meant to. Joyland, short read, awesome book. It's got everything. Coming of age. There's a whodunit. There's mystery. There's not a whole lot of violence. There's a good climax, though. Very, very good climax there. It makes sense. It all adds up. All the threads tie together well. You might cry. I did. Won't tell you what part. You'll probably know. Stephen King gets pretty heartwarming sometimes. Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption, Stand By Me, The Body. But I highly recommend it, guys. It's $13 at Barnes & Noble. And I feel like I wanted to cover this one just because I don't think it really got recognition. And I'm going to be psychic right now. I'm going to tell you it would make a very good movie. And I hope if it's done right, and I hope one day someone realizes that this would make a great, great movie. So anyway, that's all, guys, for Books and Bourbon, Volume 1. Hope you like it. Give me a thumbs up. Write me a comment. I'm reading another one right now. I won't give away what it is or anything like that. I'm looking at new bourbons to introduce. So I'm going to go enjoy some bourbon, read this book. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I will see everyone soon. Salutations, sayonara. Have a fantastic evening. Thanks. Bye-bye.